I'm here in my capacity as a professional, as a mental health professional, to look at the perspective with respect to the emotional impact and the way forward. Now, if you listen to the stories, some of them are very apparent and straightforward. The fact that there will be an emotional component to single parenthood. Now, before I proceed, let me just quickly establish a premise here. And that premise is that we remember from biology in secondary school that the World Health Organization defines health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. What this definition means is that health is like a stool that sits on three legs. So you have health sitting on these three legs. One leg is physical health. The second leg is your mental health. The third leg is your social health. We all tend to pay attention to our physical health. If you have diarrhea and you are running to the bathroom every 5 minutes, nobody will tell you to look for the nearest chemist. But our mental health, our social well-being, that is what we do not pay as much attention to. But it's important for us to appreciate that these three components of health are closely interwoven and interrelated, and indeed, they affect one another. I usually give an example of a young doctor I knew about 15 years ago. He was traveling from the city to his village to visit his aged mother, and his vehicle somersaulted. He had an injury. He damaged his spinal cord at the level of the neck. And you know that our brain controls everything we do. And that brain communicates with the rest of our body via the spinal cord, which passes through our backbone down to our waist. And then we have nerves leaving the spinal cord to power our hands, power our legs, so we can move. So when he damaged his spinal cord at the level of the neck, the consequence was that from his neck downwards became paralyzed. He was a young man of 35, newly married, with one child and a fresh bride of 2 years. That's a physical injury, is that not so? That's a physical health problem. Deriving from that realization that he has suddenly become paralyzed for life, because spinal cord is not something we repair. If it's damaged, it's damaged. There's no spare parts. It cannot be replaced. You cannot do transplant of spinal cord. So he realized that he's going to be paralyzed for the rest of his life. Not surprisingly, he became depressed. So you see that from a physical injury, a physical health problem, he developed what? A mental health complication. He became depressed. A few years down the line, the wife left him. That's a social complication. For you to appreciate what I'm describing here, it means that he cannot feed himself. He cannot lift a finger. If he wants to poo-poo, they will bring a bedpan and lift his waist up. If he wants to wee-wee, they will bring a small kettle and help him put his genitals into it so he can urinate into it. He was that helpless, couldn't do anything for himself. But yet his eyes were open and he could speak. So in a nutshell, what I'm illustrating here is that the three components of health are closely interdependent. So physical health affects our mental health, which affects our social health. How about if you have a social issue? If you have a social issue, for instance, as a single parent or as a spouse in an abusive marriage, that's a social issue, right? But that social issue will predispose you to developing depression, which is a mental health problem. May predispose you to developing high blood pressure, that's hypertension, which is a physical health problem. So you see that all of these three components are very closely interrelated. How about the mental health challenges of single parenthood? And when we talk about single parenthood generally, it may be a man, even though we know the majority are usually females, as high as 80% are usually females. But it could also be a man, either through death of a spouse or illness, cancer, and so on and so forth. The common things that emotional experience includes feelings of inadequacy. Where did I go wrong? Is it I'm not good enough to maintain my husband or my family and keep it together? Am I so inadequate? Am I not good enough? Feelings of doubt, feelings of low self-esteem, anxiety, commonly depression. And all of these problems become compounded by loneliness, isolation, emotional exhaustion, emotional and physical. I mean, our celebrant, the founder today, was mentioning earlier when her son was screaming for her attention even when she was giving a speech. You know, if you have two partners, if you can't go for PTA meeting today, you say, darling, honey, please, can you help me represent me at the family, at the PTA meeting? Can you please do this? So you sort of share responsibilities, and the weight is not overwhelming for one person. But when you are the only one, you clean the house, you repair, go and buy gas, repair generator, go for PTA, everything. You are the risk of physical and emotional exhaustion and burnout. It's not helped in our environment by the fact that we have a lot of societal stigma. Look at her. If she was a responsible woman, she would still be in her husband's house. People are not interested. We are very judgmental. And we are not interested in reading behind the lines to understand the context or the story. And even when there is a lot of abuse, don't forget that abuse is not just physical beating. It can be emotional abuse. It can be psychological abuse, where someone makes you feel that you are nothing. You are not good enough. You step to the left, that's not good. You step to the right, that's not good. You remain in one place. Why are you staying in one space? What that does to you is that psychologically it destroys your sense of self-esteem. And you begin to question every judgment that you make in life. And that is also, that's emotional and psychological abuse. So it's not just when a spouse is beating the other spouse that there is abuse. Abuse is of various categories. But our society is very intolerant, very quick to judge and condemn without listening to the story. And what I usually say, because I've been practicing as a psychiatrist now for about 17 years, and in that period of time, I've seen so many cases that have resulted in the death of a spouse. A woman I knew was depressed because the husband was always beating her. At a point, he beat her, stripped her naked, and sent her out of the house. And she went back to her family. Her family sent her back to the husband's house. Until the day the man beat her and killed her, leaving behind 4 children that were then farmed out to relatives, where I can where I can bet my salary that those children are working as houseboys and housegirls. Because without a mother's love and care, nobody will care for a child like a mother, even with the best of intentions. Even your own biological sister will not be like the biological mother of a child. So what I tell people in our society, and the message I want us to take away, is that if a marriage is not working, it's better, and I'm happy Reverend Father is here, religious institutions frown on marriage dissolution, but they allow it in exceptional circumstances. Because if you do not allow it, you will come back to officiate at the funeral of one of the victim. And we don't want, I'm sure Reverend Father will not want to come and officiate at the funeral ceremony of a woman that was beaten to death by her husband, especially if he knew previously that they were having challenges. So it's better to walk away, stay alive, look after yourself, than to die and end up leaving orphaned children. I would very quickly also mention that there are also emotional consequences on the children from such homes. We need to be aware of this and protect the children from these emotional consequences. Some of them include feeling guilty. Was it my fault? Was it because of me that mommy and daddy are no longer together? It occurs to them. They also feel a lot of resentment, sometimes fleeting, hopefully, towards the parents, even one that is looking after them now. Why couldn't you make it work? Why can't our family be like my other friends in school? Why am I the one that does not have a father figure in the picture. So all of these emotions go through the minds of children. Now, they also have a lot of anger, frustration at themselves, at the whole world, because they feel unfairly dealt with. In rounding up, because I don't want to take too much of our time, we still have a lot of other speakers ahead. I would just want to conclude by offering some tips that may be very helpful for single parents, single mothers who are having to deal with these challenges. The first tip is this: you know, when you are traveling in a plane and they say in the event of turbulence or anything, you know, oxygen mask will drop. What should you do? Take your own first and fit it before you even help your own child or your own baby, because if you lose consciousness because you are out of oxygen, you won't be able to help your baby. So put your own mask first. So my first tip is, please pay attention to yourself. Don't burn out physically and emotionally. Number two, make sure that you invest in having a social support system. That is the backbone. You need, every human being needs someone to lean on from time to time. There is nobody that is superhuman. All of us need a pillar to lean on during your weak moments. Invest in making sure that you have a social support to provide that pillar for you. The third tip is, please, and I beg very passionately, avoid unburdening too much responsibilities on the children. Don't rob them of the innocence of their childhood. Don't make them mature, responsible adults too early. It's not helpful. You may break them. In life, you develop strength and resilience before you carry certain weights. Like a weightlifter, professional weightlifter carrying weight, you start from small ones. Then you get to bigger as your muscles get bigger. So if you unburden a lot of, and that is the easy way out, because there's no adult person in the picture to ventilate, to talk. So you end up pouring out to the children. As much as possible, please moderate it. Don't overburden them with too many adult responsibilities. Let them enjoy their childhood and play carefree. That innocence, don't rob them of it. Again, as much as possible, resist the temptation to tell them, drown them overwhelmingly in how irresponsible their father was or is. Because it then makes them torn between the devil and the deep blue sea. They love you. You are their mother. You are caring for them. You are doing so much for them. They appreciate it. But many of these children, decades down the line, will go look for their father. And you don't want to poison their minds. Don't get me wrong, and I'm speaking here as a professional, not as a man, so that you don't say it's because I'm biased. It's for their emotional well-being that you don't cause them to have turmoil, internal turmoil, and not knowing what to do, when to do, how to do it, who to take sides, more or less, because more or less you are recruiting them to take sides. That's not to say that you shouldn't point out what is irresponsible, that is bad, that this is not the way to behave, especially if they are male children, so that when they grow up, they don't also behave that way. Okay? Please bond very closely with your children. And I'm very happy that Uju mentioned that earlier. And most single parents do that. Bond very closely with them so that they don't feel, especially when they are below the age of 10, we don't want them to feel deprived of love and affection and feel that nobody cares. We don't want that. So please bond, show them a lot of love and affection. But as they hit puberty and teenage years, growing up, begin to give them some space. Okay? Let them mature to stand on their own feet and come to you for advice when they need it. Have honest conversations with them. And in having honest conversations with them, admit your own faults. If I had known this earlier, I may not have done this. Right? Because no human being, including the person holding the microphone, is a saint. All of us, we are in therapy, in psychotherapy, we say that every human being is damaged goods. All of us, without exception. It's just that the extent of damage that we have differs from person A to person B. So when you focus on building yourself, it's doing introspection to know your faults, know your flaws, and compensate. So have honest conversations with them. Lastly, your life should not revolve around the children alone. You must have an independent life because the children are watching you. They are watching you and they are going to grow and leave you anyway, whether you like it or not. It's a natural cycle of life. They are going to grow, go to university, want to get married and have their own life. So as much as possible, you want to shower them with love, spend a lot of time with them, but don't allow your entire life be built around, oh, it's because when you do that a lot and you say it to their hearing, they also begin to feel guilty. That is because of us that mommy is sacrificing this. It's because of us that mommy is doing this. And you don't want them to be feeling guilty for you showing them love. So it's a fine balance, but keep that at the back of your mind as you plan your life to ensure that you do have a life, to ensure that you give them a little space and you don't end up making them feel guilty that you are making so many sacrifices because of them. You are not doing anything because of them. It's like a two-edged sword. And children are very smart. Even children of 3, 4, 5 years are smart beyond what we'll give them credit for. And if they internalize the message, they may misunderstand it to say, oh, I'm the barrier that is not allowing mommy have a successful career because she's sacrificing everything for me. And that's not the message you are trying to pass across. So let's just keep that at the back of our mind. So ultimately, please let us pay attention to our health holistically. Remember the WHO definition of health I started with. Physical health, mental health, and social health. Pay attention to your social well-being. Make sure you have a social support system. Friends, family that you can lean on when things are tough. Your emotional health, pay attention to it. If you are depressed or having emotional problems, please see a therapist, see a psychiatrist. Make sure you receive therapy you need. And we'll work with the Jubi Care Foundation because the Asido Foundation, which I founded, is a mental health advocacy organization. And what we do is that we have a team of experts, psychiatrists, clinical psychologists. We have a helpline and we offer therapy for free via the phone across the country. So as Jubi Care offers support and all of this, if you have individuals who are going through emotional trauma, emotional difficulties, and they need to speak to someone, the guarantee we give you is that you'll be speaking to a therapist who is certified, not just anybody, so that's quality will be guaranteed, and we can offer that for free because we are offering it for free anyway as our contribution to our nation's well-being. So on behalf of myself and the Asido Foundation, I say thank you very much for inviting us and kudos to you for the amazing work you are doing, and wish you a very happy birthday and many more fulfilling and successful years of impact in the future. Thank you very much.